You're listening to the Level Flight Podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. And welcome back, everyone, to the Level Flight Podcast. We're at episode 20. That's insane to me, but, here we are, 20 episodes in, and you're still listening to us. That's a good sign.
I think that means we're doing something good.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that good?
It might be. As always, I am joined today by Connor.
Hello.
And Elliott.
Hey.
And it's a mailbag episode. We haven't done one of these in a while. It just hasn't lined up. So we're going to take a couple questions here, but we have a few games to recap, including, a couple wins that perhaps weren't deserved, but they got them, and a couple losses that were most certainly, losses.
They were definitely deserved.
I will say so we'll start here. Bruins game last week. We sort of recorded the day of that game, so we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but they lose 3-0 in that one. That being said, they, put a lot towards Jeremy Swayman for the Bruins. I think they outshot, the Bruins like 36-23 or something.
Yeah.
So it's not like Boston. It was an easy game for Boston, but they just couldn't finish their chances, which stopped me if I've heard that before.
Yeah, and I said it last episode, but I'm willing to just write it off like it's Boston. Like I wasn't expecting a win. They actually played better than I thought they were going to. I thought they were going to get shelled because Boston is, again, one of the best teams in NHL history, or they're on pace to be at least. But Jeremy Swayman is also on a heater right now. I think he shut out the Jets, and I think his next game he went and shut out another team. But yeah, they generated some chances. They couldn't finish. This is a story we've been telling all year. But then again, it's Boston. They're going to find ways to win because that's what they've done all year. So that's what I saw.
Yep. Both of the guys already reiterated chances, no scoring. And Boston just didn't. I honestly actually don't think Boston played that well either. Like, if I'm being quite honest, that should have. I don't want to put any expectations on this team. But they probably should have won that game. But it also just seemed like in the third period, they kind of just deflated as well. At the beginning of the third, you could kind of just tell that they were kind of over, that they had thrown so many pucks at the net and nothing had gone in. And so they kind of just decided that, yep, tonight's our night, and let's just end this 20 minutes and get it over with and go home. So, which is not, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about effort in the next couple of games that we talk about, but it's not really a recipe for success, especially this late in the year.
Yeah. The weird thing is, though, and this happens twice on this little stretch here, weird scheduling. They play a bunch of road games, come back and play one at home against the Bruins,
and leave again. Yeah.
Then head back out on the road to play the Predators and the Blues, and then returned home to play the Coyotes last night. So the Preds game, an overtime winner, which, I mean, it's not expected, but it's a win, one that you kind of need. But you give Nashville a point, who's chasing you, which is just you cannot give any leverage to them.
No divisional opponents should be getting points at this point in the year.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets are taking that to heart.
Yeah.
But no, like, to be honest with you, the Jets-Preds game, for me, I didn't actually get a chance to watch the whole thing. But from what I saw, it was just chaos. The power play still sucks. It's just, I don't know. It feels like a common theme. And to address some people who have asked us if we're repeating ourselves, we are. But that's just because they keep doing the same dumb stuff.
Look, I will be the first to say it. I would love to talk about other stuff on this show. I really would, but we can't because nothing is getting fixed. So we all I think I can speak for the other two guys. We'd like to talk about other things, but unfortunately there are problems that we've been talking about for now a long period of time that just haven't gotten fixed, and some of it hasn't even been addressed as a problem. It's just either considered a slump or it's just been thrown in the closet and they've locked it with 50 locks and decided to not talk about it.
Yeah, I like the Nashville game. You needed a regulation win. because of where they are in the standings. And now I have no faith. If you go look at Nashville's lineup, I have no faith that they can even put together like a decent run at the playoffs. So I wasn't like, it was the biggest game of the year to that point because Nashville's right behind them in the playoffs and they had games in hand and all that. But then it didn't really turn out that way because there was a loser point and Nashville got a point anyways. The Jets got a point. It was a 1-point game instead of a 2. So yeah, but then they followed it up with the Blues, who I'd honestly say are a better team than Nashville currently constructed. And as soon as I saw Joel Hofer was making his 4th career start and he's from Winnipeg, I said the Jets have lost. This game is over. Like, of course he did. This has been a Jets theme for the last decade.
Scott Foster.
This random goalie comes in. It's making his within his first 5 starts of his career, he's getting a shutout on the Jets. Like lock it in,
especially or E-Bug or like
absolutely.
It's either that or like milestone goals.
Milestones, yeah.
It's always against the Jets.
But this was like a carbon copy of the Boston game where I'd say they got better chances in the Boston game just from what I saw. I don't know about the expected goals and all that, but the Blues game, it's like Hofer and I guess Thomas Greiss had like a save, but they had like 34 or 33 as a tandem. I'd only say about like 6 or 7 of those were like actually good chances and good saves against the Blues as well. Could have threatened them more. Torrey Krug got tossed like 5 or 10 minutes into the game, so they lost like their second best defenseman, however good you think Justin Falk is, but when a team is making a start of their 4th career goalie and they lose their best defenseman within the first 10 minutes, you got to win that game. And they don't even score a goal. And then it kind of puts you give Nashville a loser point and then you lose the next night. It just kind of puts it all under an umbrella and it doesn't look good. Those 2 games doesn't look good. No.
That was interesting. I don't even want to get into the Torrey Krug situation. That was just like I don't even know what you can call that. I to be honest, I was laughing. I was watching the game and I just started laughing. I was like, what's going on? What are we really doing here? Yeah. I mean, the Blues bench seemed to agree with Krug, so it was what it was. I don't think it was anything crazy, but also a little bit slightly biased perspective potentially could be clouding my judgment. I try not to. I try to be, if it's a bad hit, then I will admit it, but it didn't seem that bad to me. But no, I thought that the Jets were kind of so. I thought they were better in the Bruins game, but nothing came of it. I thought they were okay in this game. I didn't think they were that great. There were points again, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, there's been issues with effort and trying to have them sustain, like where you just body language and guys making plays. Like you can tell some guys are playing harder than others. I'm not going to call any players out. I'm not going to pinpoint anybody because it's at some points it's different guys and other points it's others. Mm-hmm. And so there's just been effort problems that I've just been noticing where even just body language where guys are going to the bench. They look dejected. I'm watching the bench and it's just kind of like guys are sitting there and they sulk or like somebody like, I don't even know. It's to the point where it's kind of becoming a real problem. And we saw it at practice before the Arizona game. Scott Billeck had a complete thread about the comments the players were making and what he seemed to notice while he was at the practice. And so
at the Arizona game too, Bonus in the post game said that in the second period, the bench went silent. We can talk about the Arizona game now. It's a good transition. Yeah. But they win this game 2-1. They come out flying in the first period. I was at this game. I was like, this is a start. They finally, they score shorthanded. Great play by Morgan Baird. Nice pass by Neil Pionk up to Morgan Baird. Nikolai Ehlers' individual effort. Great start. Yep. And then they just completely throw the game to Connor Hellebuyck and say, bail us out after the first period. Like they're attacking. They're forechecking hard. And then you can just tell that they just completely trap it up. They completely go back into their shell and say, you know what? We have a 2-goal lead. We are, for 40 minutes left in the game, we're going to try to protect this. Not like 2 minutes left and the Coyotes have an empty net. No, they're trying to protect the 2-goal lead 40 minutes out and really didn't threaten much. They went 0 for on the power play. I don't know how many power plays they had. I lost count at one point.
It's been 0 for 19, so that's the number that keeps.
Yeah, and Connor Hellebuck makes some amazing saves. The one where he's literally in the corner and he sticks his stick out. It's just weird. That was just a weird, great save. But
yeah.
They just went into a shell, and Connor Hellebuck bailed them out. And it's just all right against Arizona. I'd like to see them keep attacking, go up 2 more goals, and then you can go into your shell if you're up 4. But then again, Arizona's been sneaky good lately. They've gotten points in like 8 straight games or something coming into last night's game. But I just don't like the philosophy there, because you can so visibly see that they just took a step back and went, all right, we're up 2. We're good. Let's just protect this. And it's like, no, keep going.
Yep. Well, and the issue too, and once again, reiterating this, it's the same cycle of, oh, things aren't working. Let's put together guys that we know have not worked together. Like, it's these weird lineup blender things that never actually make sense. There's one line that has not been put back together yet with Connor, Dubois, and Ehlers. Best line that the Jets have had all season, has not seen the ice together in months.
No.
So, like, at some point, like, I need to know why Bonus is being like, I don't want to go to this line, because everything that he puts together clearly has not been the answer to their offensive woes, because I think they're up to like I think only 6 of the past like 22 games, I think they have like 3 or more goals, which you got to, I was saying this to Connor yesterday, you have to score more than 3 occasionally, because as we've seen here, Hellebuck can't bail you out all the time because you're not scoring enough.
Yeah.
He can only do so much.
Yeah, the line blender that you're talking about, it seems like he's going out of his way to not put that line together, because I can't even count how many games where they start with a lineup and by the 3rd period it's changed. But it's like just a weird mix of players together, and it's never Connor Dubois Ehlers. Like, you would think, like, if he's just throwing a line blender out there, that he would stumble into Connor Dubois Ehlers and maybe they'd light it up for a period and he'd be like, oh, I'll go back to that line that worked a month and a half ago. But it's always Ehlers moving down or up and Connor moving down or up, and never on the same line. And that line has been dynamite, and we've all said it, but they've in a huge scoring slump as of late. You can't win every game 2-1. You can't play the Arizona Coyotes every game.
Yeah.
You got to put that line together for a scoring boost. And then the power play, we can't even really get started with that, because it's beyond broken at this point.
Be prepared for an episode by itself just about the power play.
Talk about that for an hour and a half. The power play, all the issues.
Yeah,
but
that's the thing. Like, we could dedicate like an entire segment. We should just go live every time they go to the power play, just so we can like live analyze it to see them not scoring.
You would see me fall asleep.
Yeah. Like,
quick 2-minute nap with the timer on.
We go down to Anaheim, just a notoriously bad team, and can't get anything going. That says a lot about what's going on right now.
Calgary beat Anaheim 5-1 last night.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there.
Yep. I don't know. In terms of the line blender, I'm kind of coming to the realization, and I don't know if you two are, or if any of our listeners are too, when they look at the lines. I'm now wondering if there are specific lines that Bones has figured out that are working, and he's doing a really silly tactic of just quote unquote saving them for the playoffs so teams can't scout the line.
I think you're giving him too much credit.
That'd be galaxy braining way too much.
I know, and I may be giving him too much credit, but that, from my perspective, that's just what it looks like. I don't know how many times I've tweeted this year. You can go check on my Twitter account saying, can we please go back to the lines that worked? I know there's a player injured, but we traded for one that is probably, they play different play styles.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you can put him in a different role, and I'm sure the lines would still fit. I don't think we need to keep, like, we don't need to keep throwing all of our freezer stuff from, like, all of our frozen fruits from the freezer and our almost expired yogurt into a blender, and we make a smoothie of lines. Like, I don't think we need to be doing this.
Every game too. Every game.
Like, and it's not even like, well, other than the Blues to Arizona game where the lines didn't work, and then he went with the same lines for last night until he changed them. But
when they didn't work, he stuck with them. But when they worked, he changed them.
And that's the problem. That's what he's doing. When the lines don't work, he goes, let's keep these lines because they're not working. So maybe
They'll
they'll
fight through it.
Maybe they'll figure themselves out. And then we get to the third period and he goes, oh, I guess these aren't working. So let's make some changes. Like what?
Let's put Pionk with Morrissey.
Yeah. I don't know.
Let's completely tank Morrissey's value for.
I will say, I don't know if the stats back this up. Someone can check and tell me that I'm wrong on Twitter. But I thought Neil Pionk actually played an outstanding game last night against Arizona. We hate on him a lot on this podcast, so I wanted to say I thought he played really well. He had the really nice pass to Barron for the Lowry goal. He saved a goal when Hellebuck made that save because he was the one that broke up the shot and didn't let the guy raise it, basically. And I just thought he was winning more puck battles than usual. But that's just,
I thought he played quite well last night.
I don't know.
I thought he played quite well last night. I did see a lot of Twitter ripping on him last night. Apparently saying that he played his worst game of the season last night. So I don't know.
Well, that's just a regular. That's just a regular.
It's probably just a normal Neil Pionk game. But I don't know. It's interesting. I'm very interested to see, especially after Connor, like you said, Bonus's comments last night about the bench going. Like, I want to know what happened for the bench to go completely silent.
Yeah,
that's the comment I really want to know.
About I think he said something about momentum being halted because they got on a penalty kill early or something, and they gave up the goal, and then it was just kind of defeated. And then the third period, he said that they woke up on the bench or whatever. They were more vocal.
If you want to be a playoff team, that can't, and that goes for any sport. If you want to be a playoff team in any sport, you can't have lapses where the bench is completely silent and your morale is just completely dead. That's the sign of either A, mediocre team, or B, a team that's going to be at the bottom of the standings. That's how I view it. And so if you want to be a playoff team, you have to be playing bad and still think momentum's still on our side. We're still they're up 2-0 and then 2-1. I would still say that even though they got outshot in that period, I still think the momentum for a good chunk of it was still in their favor until Arizona scored. That's when I kind of see that the momentum shifted slightly. But even after that, you have to think in your head as a competitor and as a professional. No, we've still got this. We're still in control. Let's go out there and yes, did they do that in the third period? Sure. But it probably shouldn't have waited until the intermission when Bones had to go in there and probably scream and yell at them going, what the are we doing? Let's wake up. Right.
Yeah.
So
it
is what it is. But I'm very interested to see how the demeanor that's one thing that everyone should be watching for this next game against Arizona is demeanor and morale on the bench, on the ice, and just even again, comments from practices and pressers.
Yeah. I searched up a game score graph. I've got it in the back, Brian, if you want to let it through so I can share my screen. But my eyes did not deceive me. Pionk was he was up there. He was up there. Him and Morgan Barron played a really good game. The Ehlers, Dubois, Wheeler line clearly had a good game.
Connor Scheifele, Nino.
Yeah, Connor Scheifele, Nino. Yeah, rough. But Neil Pionk, he actually played pretty good. He had a 51.5% expected goal share on Money Puck. So hey, that was a good game from Neil Pionk. I'll stand by that take.
And you know what? And I think that we've actually seen Morgan Barron again in another chunk of games play really well. So I'm really excited. I know I said he was my most improved pick at the start of the year, and then we did a mid-season check-in, and I said he might have been a little bit more disappointing than I hoped.
You had to keep faith.
I had to keep faith. I will say, Morgan, I'm sorry. I still love your game. I hope that you keep this up because I do want to see him play well.
Really good.
And I think that he, were injuries and other little lineup things kind of halting his progress this season a little bit. Sure, but I think he's finding his groove. And I think for the Jets, this is the time where guys need to find their footing here. We need to stop slipping and taking 2 steps forward and 5 steps back because we're not figuring out where we're going here.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think the coaching staff just has to, bet on the guys that are they've the lines themselves that have actually got them success, and actually remembering that, just actually, put faith in, those guys, and, just because odds are they're going to just do what they need to do. Speaking of betting, the biggest tournament in college basketball is underway, and the action is just getting started on DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any pregame money line and score $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Plus, combine multiple bets for a shot at an even bigger payout. DraftKings will be featuring parlays and odds boosts for all tournament games. So, be sure to check the DraftKings Sportsbook app every day to see what they have in store. I'm still putting my money on UConn to win it all. Connor, I know you've got some. Elliott,
Oh yeah.
I mean, KU's out, but I know you've got faith. But you just have to sometimes just put your faith in one team and hope. It's worked out so far. The rest of my bracket's busted, but that's where we're at. So just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and sign up with code THPN. Right now, new customers can bet $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and get $150 in bonus bets. If your team wins, just only at DraftKings Sportsbook, code THPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply, and see show notes for details. Go UConn.
Go UConn.
Yeah,
That's
they
my
better beat
takeaway.
Arkansas.
They're my
I will
national
be-
champion in like every bracket. So let's
I
go
am
UConn.
cheering for them against Arkansas because I don't think Arkansas deserves to be in the Sweet 16. So
I wonder
Coming
why.
from the KU fan.
I don't think we deserve to be in the Sweet 16 after we blew a 12-point lead. But also, you know what? I said it to the guys the other day. I said the refs already won the national championship.
Oh
So-
my. The refs. It's always the refs. All right, let's
Yeah,
get a
well,
move on.
Wrong
here.
podcast.
Yeah. If if you want to, let us know how your bracket's doing once you see this on the podcast. We can talk about that more on Twitter. But speaking of Twitter, we put out our mailbag request and got a few questions back, and some really good questions, and some that might cause us to have some sort of crisis. So we're going to start off here. This is from Noah here. Do you think Chevy and ownership are reluctant to start a rebuild because they're scared that less people will actually go to the games? And then mentions that, watching the young players, so Perfetti, Hainola, Lucius, Lambert, McGorty, so on and so forth, it's a lot better if you know that you're, sort of on that development track. It's a bit more entertaining. Rather than, having a bunch of guys, what you're getting, but they're probably not going to go very far. What do you guys think? I've got several thoughts, but I'll defer to you two first.
I think yes, that is like they are reluctant to start a rebuild, because if you look at the attendance numbers, like the Jets were really selling out games before COVID, and you can't really you can't really plan for that. But since then, they haven't been selling out games like they used to. At the start of the year, when they were first in the West and there would be a good team coming in, that game would sell out. But now they're hovering in like the mid 80s range for attendance. And I think that's scaring some owners, some ownership people at True North. And they might be scared to completely tear it down because people are like, oh, Connor Hellebuyck's my favorite player. And if they trade him away, I'm not going to go to a Jets game. Or Mark Scheifele is my favorite player, or Pierre-Luc Dubois, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely in the back of their minds. I also agree with Noah that tearing it down and watching all these young players develop would be super fun and better than this like mediocre on the playoff line. Are they going to get in? If they even do, they're going to get bounced in the first round by Vegas or whoever, right? And then 2-3 years from now, you get the payoff. You're bad for 2 years. You watch these young players develop, and then 2-3 years from now, you're good. The goaltending situation, we don't really know, but all these players theoretically develop, and you become a better team. And then that's when you get all those attendance numbers back. You're selling out games, you're competing, stuff like that. But I definitely think that's affecting their, this summer is going to be big for that. And the next question is about the summer and if people get traded away. But I definitely think that's in the back of their minds. Definitely till this point. I don't know if it'll affect them this summer, but we will see. Because if they run it back, then it's 100%. They're scared to the rebuild and go through 2-3 years of bad attendance numbers, and have people saying like, "Oh, this team's bad," be in the lottery running. Like, yeah, I definitely think that's the case.
I will completely second motion what Connor just said. I don't even know if I need to add much other than a little plug for him. Goaltending situation. Speaking of that,
Thanks, Elliott.
your newest
Dang.
Hockey Writers article about Dominic DiVincentis. Maybe he is the answer.
Maybe. Yeah, go
But-
check it out. It was fun to research that. Thank you for the plug, Elliott.
No problem. As soon as you said goaltending, I thought, hey, there's somebody that just released an article. Also, go check out Brian's stuff. It's also, I would say, on par as good. I don't want to leave you both out. You know
Fair
how
enough.
I want to make it as even as possible. But I personally think that, like, even right now, I'll equate it to basketball. My favorite team is the Houston Rockets. Are they bad? Absolutely. They have no idea how to play defense, but they're really fun to watch. They're the youngest team in the league. Like, Jalen Green scores a lot. Kevin Porter Jr. scores a lot. You get to watch Jabari Smith Jr. Alperen Şengün's finally breaking out, which is great because he's my favorite player on the entire team, and he has been since he got drafted. Like, they're fun to watch. Yes, do the Rockets sell out every night? No. But when big names still come, you'll still get the occasional sellout or the higher attendance numbers. Maybe they would squeak down into that high 60s, low 70s range for a little bit, and the building might feel empty. But, like, let's say when Crosby comes to town, or Ovi, or who, like, a good Boston comes back next year. McDavid. Those will still be back in the 80s, 90s. You'll have a full building. So I really understand from a management perspective why they wouldn't want to, but at the same time, you also need to consider as a team, not just, and I know there's been a lot of stuff recently about True North being all about the money, and I won't even get into that. But if you want to be a successful hockey club, you also need to think about the team aspect. And the team aspect right now is going with the younger core and deciding that, you know what, I think we need to take a hit financially for 2 seasons for it to pay off for us to really, like, and that's really, sometimes you need to take a deficit to get back out ahead later. Yeah. And that's just the way it is. So in my mind, sometimes you need to just decide that, you know what, we had it with this core, didn't work. And we'll get into that question in a second here once Brian's made his comments. I think that it just needs to be decided that we need to take a hit. We rebuild, and you're probably going to make more money if if they think about it really hard. And I don't think it's a very difficult thing to think about. I think you realize that you will make more money if you play the younger players first and it succeeds later. Also, lots of people like those younger players. So if they're worried about jersey sales too, people are still going to buy the jerseys because one, this town the people in this province, in this city, love hockey. So they're still going to try to come to some games, and they're still going to buy jerseys, and people like the players, and they have good personalities. So that's where I will leave that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm echoing a lot of what you guys are saying, but I do think from what we've seen in the past, the organization definitely has more of a preference towards making playoff pushes rather than losing money, because you get that playoff money, it really helps things.
That playoff money.
Yeah, absolutely. Playoff money, street party money, all of that. So I think there'd be hesitation purely because of that. Ultimately, in terms of the betterment of the organization, it would be better to be not terrific for a few years here. And I'm of the mindset that you just kind of turn the team over to the young guys, and they'll probably not be great for a couple of years and, lottery contending, but lottery contending is how you get true superstars to develop. So like
New Jersey.
Like teams that finish a couple years down near the bottom, get those top 5 picks, suddenly in a few years, they're like, oh, they're contending again because they've got really good talent. The Jets have not, aside from kind of lucking into that number 2 pick for Line, where they actually jumped up in the lottery, they don't finish anywhere lower than like middle of the pack.
No.
Like 7th, I think was the earliest, other than the Line one with Scheifele.
Yeah.
So it's,
and that wasn't even our, like, I don't even know if I'd count that because I was the Thrashers at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like they went
that wasn't even us.
It was like 8 or 9 with Ehlers, I guess then. So
I guess so, yeah.
But no, like in order to actually, be good eventually, occasionally you have to be bad. You can't just try and maintain mediocre as you roll through a new core, because mediocrity is not going to get you anything for the future. You're just giving your young guys a chance to play, but you're not giving the team a chance to get, that talent that you can develop, because as we've always heard, you can't attract free agents here.
Right.
And ownership doesn't exactly make the biggest, confidence in trade splashes. It's always, put the confidence in the GM, and it's got us that the most, mediocre of, big names. Like, there were good trades at the time, but it's like you at some point or another, you either have to be aggressive on that front, somehow find a way to lure a free agent, or find a way to get a top 5 pick, because otherwise you're going to be stuck somewhere middling in the middle there. So it's
I will make one last point on this is when the Jets were bad when they came here, the games were selling out. But that's mainly because, new hockey team, new city. Yeah, they're going to sell out, right? I will say I went to a preseason game against the Edmonton Oilers this year. All the young guys are playing. Brad Lambert was skating circles around the Edmonton Oilers. That was one of the most fun games, preseason or regular season, that I've been to this year. I've been lucky enough to go to a decent amount of the games, and that's been one of that I enjoyed myself. Probably like top 5 games was that preseason game against the Edmonton Oilers where Brad Lambert was flying up and down the ice, just because it's fun to watch an 18-year-old kid light up the NHL. It was like, that's pretty cool. And I was at that game. I wasn't the only one enjoying it. Like, the crowd was really into it. Every time he touched the puck, it was like Nikolai Ehlers. You hear the crowd like, oh, he's flying down the ice. Like, this city would get behind a young core like that. Yeah. Like, I have no like, I trust that this city would absolutely do that, because even if they're bad, again, Brad Lambert's going to have 3 or 4 flashes a game that's going to make it worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, on that note too, I guess another way you can acquire futures would be to deal guys on expiring contracts. So a couple come to mind, and this is from Julian here, where it was essentially, what are our realistic returns for Dubois, Scheifele, and Hellebuck? I hate, especially after this year, because I lost my read on what players are worth. I don't like doing mock trades because I'm typically so wrong. That being said, it's hard to imagine a world where there isn't a first round pick coming back in all of these deals.
Yeah.
Especially, so the issue here is you're kind of handcuffed with what you've heard on the Dubois front, because that Montreal is the preferred destination. So if you're another team, why would you want to shell out assets if you know he's probably going to want to leave again? That being said, Montreal, I could see maybe, I saw this on Twitter, and I agreed with it, where for Dubois it was a first and Kirby Dach.
Yeah.
I think that's the best you're going to get.
Yeah, I said like 3 or 4 episodes ago when we had Jacob Stoller on that if Dubois is going to Montreal, I want Kirby Dach back. He got traded for Kevin Korchinski. It was a first round draft pick who ended up being Kevin Korchinski in the first round, I think, or he might have been the later first. Actually, I don't know what I'm saying.
It was that weird deal with Romanov going to New York as well.
Montreal made a million moves at the draft, which I like. They were aggressive. But Kirby Dach, young center who's playing a lot better this year than he ever has in his career. And again, you get a first round pick. Montreal, are they Pierre-Luc Dubois away from being a playoff contender? Probably not. That's probably a decent first round pick, especially if it's next year or the year after, whatever. Yeah. But I think that's a good starting point. It's the kind of deal, and this is how you know that this is the best trade proposal, is that both sides hate it.
Yeah.
The Jets fans are like, oh, Montreal needs to add to that. A Kirby Dach in a first? Oh, you got to add to that. And Montreal fans are like, we're not giving up that much for Dubois. That's terrible. Or it's like, oh, you guys are going to have to add to that. You guys are going to have to add Heinola or whatever, another younger prospect.
Yeah.
So that's how you know it's a great deal. But yeah, Kirby Dach in a first, I think is the starting point, and I would be kind of happy with that. just to start with Dubois. Yeah.
For me, realistically, any of these trades are either a first and a B prospect or a younger player that has some upside, or like a prospect and a second or a third. That's kind of how I see it. It's you're not gonna get like the farm for any like.
I think for Hellebuck, you can get the farm.
I honestly think for Scheifele, with a year of control on a team-friendly deal with.
I think Scheifele's better suited being dealt at the deadline, actually, to a team that like one of their top 6 centers is out. Like the Leafs, they went for Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah,
and he got
that would
first,
probably
right. But I think Scheifele has more perceived value around the league than Ryan O'Reilly, especially since O'Reilly was kind of having a down year, and he's older now. But Scheifele, he'll be 30, 31. Again, team-friendly contract. A lot of teams will be able to fit him under the cap. We've seen the broker system.
Yeah.
You can just funnel that contract through Arizona if it doesn't work. But I think if you're looking at it, Scheifele might get more of a return at the deadline. Hellebuck in the offseason, for a team like LA, or whatever team is looking for a goalie to really take a young core to the next level. I think New Jersey, they just traded for Timo Meier. That probably wouldn't be a good spot, but
yeah,
I think
Detroit?
you could get the farm. I think, Detroit. I think you could get the farm.
Yeah.
Detroit, I think they'd just wait and sign him in UFA, roll the dice on that. But
yeah,
I think Hellebuck you can get the farm for in the offseason in terms of like you can get a first, probably another good prospect and maybe a goalie prospect. Scheifele, again, a first, maybe a B prospect, maybe a 1 and a 3 or a 1 and a 2. Dubois, Kirby Dach, and a 1. Those would be my 3 ideal returns for those guys.
Well, my thing though is for the Hellebuck deal, there's really not a whole lot to go off of because
there's no precedent. There's no precedent.
No one just trades a star goalie.
Vezina goalies. No.
So that's why I'm like, it'll either be higher than what we expect or lower, because it's either like, I mean, you'd have to go back, into the 90s probably to actually find like a good deal, but that's also like totally different league landscape and everything.
Oh, 100%.
Teams are so like against making these like player for player deals and swinging big. So it's, I don't know. I feel as if the return's going to be underwhelming purely because of what we've actually been able to see from Hellebuck over these last years. And I have a feeling like I there's going to be firsts involved. There's going to be probably a top prospect, but I think I could say the same for that, for, the Scheifele deal too, because of, as you said, perceived value is fairly high. And especially if it's done in the off season, which if I'm the Jets, I try and do if you get the offers, because you could definitely get a better, handle on things with having a full, chance for teams to actually sign them or whatever.
Right.
If I'm any contending team from this season or a team that's potentially looking to contend next year, I'd probably be calling the Jets after this season. As soon as the season's over, their season's over. I like, obviously Pierre-Luc Dubois is probably off the table because I'm assuming he'll go to Montreal unless teams decide that they want to see if they can swing at him. But if I'm any other GM that has a quote unquote contending roster, I would be calling up Chevy immediately and going, hey, I know you guys are in mediocrity right now and are going absolutely nowhere. Who do you have for offer for us? And I'm sure that they could make a deal. That would be if I was any other GM. But again, I'm an armchair GM, so
this isn't fantasy hockey.
Yeah,
come on.
Unfortunately,
this isn't fantasy hockey, man. Get a grip.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta go sign another bottom 6 forward that only plays defense for.
Well, this is actually a good segue point here because of the way we're talking about the team right now. We very often wind up speaking about the Jets in a very negative light because we feel as if they were, they could have done more, or it's a disappointing end to a start of a season or something like that. And firstly, please correct me on Twitter if this is not the pronunciation of your name. I want to make sure, because faithful listener. I believe is it Majin? I believe on Twitter asked us. It took a lot of inward looking here. Will we ever reach a point where we'll actually feel safe to believe in this team?
Whoa.
Yeah.
So, do we want? I can go first.
Go
if
ahead,
need
Elliot.
be.
Go
for
ahead.
it.
Go
I
ahead.
have one comment, and it's not very difficult. It's if management changes the way that they view how the organization is run / how they want things to go. That's really all I have to say. Because if this path continues, then we're going to be in the same situation with a new core, or at this point with the same core. So for me, unless management decides to make a change, I don't really know if I'm going to have a long-term faith in this organization. But now my perception was changed at the beginning of this season because of how we started. But again, long-term outlook, bleak.
Yeah. Like, my take on this is that the 1 year they did good, 2017-18. Coming into that season, not a lot of people predicted them to go to the Western Conference Finals. So going into the season, that's how I'm viewing this question. It's like, going into the season, do I feel faith that they're going to make the playoffs, etc.? That season really didn't know. And then they come off the Western Conference Finals, and then you think you're safe. And then they make the playoffs next year, but then lose in the first round to St. Louis. And then from then on, it's just been playoff series, wins, losses. They beat Edmonton, whatever. But the one time that we thought we were like safe to like, oh, this team's going to contend this year, they lost in the first round because they were coming off the huge year. And then, yeah, St. Louis beat them in 6. I don't think that'll like, unless they make a huge jump. But then again, coming off that year, you would think, right? Like if they finish next year, if they completely retool and they're the best team in the league, and then they lose in the Western Conference Finals, are you feeling safe going into next year? Because this has happened once before, right? You never know. So I'm at the point where it's a no. I've never, like, going into a season been like, yeah, this team's gonna win 2 playoff series. That has changed throughout the course of the year. Like earlier in the season, I said this team would win 2 playoff series. I don't think that anymore. But again, I'm kind of viewing this question as like a going into the season kind of thing. And my answer would be no. I don't think I could ever feel safe predicting this team to win playoff series going into a season with the same core, like Elliott said.
Yeah. My outlook on it is this. As long as that sort of, because I mean, we've had effectively the same management group since coming back to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And normally in the league, if you have 12 years of having really only one legitimate playoff run, there's a changing of the guards a little bit, whether it's you promote someone from within, someone steps away, you fire someone, whatever. Normally with other teams, that's just how it goes, because if someone's hanging around for that long, they've probably tried, like, actually come close to winning something. There's only been once, really.
Yeah.
The expectations need to be raised. It shouldn't just be we make the playoffs. It should be a challenge for a cup. Should be like just raise the bar.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that I'm at the same point too, where you guys said, where I don't feel safe to believe in the team, because I just don't know if the bar is raised enough for them to consistently have the idea of, oh, we want to make this team good enough to compete for a cup. I think something, and this has never been confirmed, but there's been a lot of talk that ownership has been very hands-on since the Jets came back. And I think ultimately, if that is the case, because I'm starting to believe it is, purely because if it wasn't, ownership would have said, that's enough of you, Kevin Cheveldayoff. We haven't done anything. But clearly they're convinced that the vision is set. They gave him a 3-year deal recently, I believe. So I think if you're going to actually find the success, hand the reins of the operations of it all over to a president of hockey ops. Something that really hasn't been, on the docket for the Jets. It's always just been, general manager, assistant general manager, and Chevy kind of runs the whole spiel up there. because I think right now, first of all, I think a new GM is required at some point in the next, several months,
Yeah.
especially after what went down at the deadline there.
Yeah. I don't know, because this is such a big off season, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every off season it's the summer of Chevy. That's a lot of people say. But we'll see, because are they going to hand this situation where either they have to sell off all these assets or go all in, I guess. Like, I don't know what the plan is this offseason, or run the course, run it back, last dance, whatever. But are they going to
Again.
hand the keys to a new GM and then have them run the course? I don't know.
Well,
We'll see.
I think the issue is I don't think anyone can confidently say that there's a visible plan in place.
I think the Nino deal means they're going to run it back next year.
Yeah.
Because it's a 2-year deal. That's my take. Like, I think that's the vision, is they've got, if they stumble out of the gates this year, then they'll trade everyone at the deadline kind of thing. But they still have Dubois under team control for one more year. They've got Scheifele, they've got Hellbuck for one more year, Wheeler for one more year. I think the Nino deal being with term, you heard that word a million times at the deadline. He's got this year and next year. I think that's their plan, is we're going to compete in the next 2 years, and Bonus's contract, I believe, is this year and next year as well.
Yeah,
so
it's a 2-year deal.
Yeah, I think they're running it back next year. That's the plan. And to answer the question, I will not feel safe believing in this team next year. No,
we may turn into a Moose podcast.
Ooh, I would like that.
Which we're going to be doing that soon, by the way. We're doing a little bit of a Moose check-in, because they are contending. So yeah, we did it a few weeks back with Jacob, but we'll do a little bit more of one coming up here. But on that cheerful note, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Jets head down to California for a couple of games. So make sure you drink your coffee, stay up late.
Yeah.
And remember, mediocrity is success.
Oh boy. But yeah, so yeah, we appreciate you all listening. Appreciate the support we got on last week's episode, because that was a lot of fun. Looking forward to bringing more guests on in the coming weeks. But from all of us here, thanks again for everyone's support. So from Connor and from Elliott, I hope everyone has a great rest of your week, and go Jets.
Go Jets.
Go Jets.
You've been listening to the Level Flight Podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network.